This is the interface you have when you open CST initially. And from here, it is a good idea to go to Project Template. If you've never used CST before or you're using a new application. Inside the template, you select which application is the best fit. So for this, it's EDA Electronics. This is Signal Integrity Analysis. I'm going to be looking at memory nets. That's a parallel interface. Here are the solvers. I'm going to select time domain. And it can tell you here what's the best fit for those underneath the solver title. These are the units. You can change. Millimeter works. And this would be the name of the template, which you can change. I'm okay with this. I'm going to go with this. Then that will bring you into the usual GUI that you work with within CST. If you were going to look at several boards and they were all going to follow the same that you just put into the template, you can, the template will appears here in the list. So you can select that and you don't have to go through all of those settings again and again. Once you are here, you need to import the EDA board. If you're not sure about what import to use or how to export from your layout tool, you can, first of all, go to the help. So there's this question, there's lots of ways to access the help. So this is one of them, which is the top right. It'll take you to the help contents. And within here, you can search, for example, Cadence, for example. So it says import Cadence Allegro. If you're going to import an Allegro file, here it would go through what you need to do within Cadence and the settings you need to select in order to do that. Okay. So once you've done that, you need to import the layout file. Go to the Modeling tab, Import, Export. From this drop-down, go to 2D EDA files, and you'll see under EDA the layout tools, Cadence, Mentor Graphics. So there's also a generic ODB++. So you can click on this one I'm going to use. So I'm going to click on that. Browse for the file. Open. And then it will take you to the EDA import dialog. The first thing to do within this dialog is look at the log file, which is the middle bottom. And within here, there's no red, and it says ending PCB conversion with success. So all is good there. And I could, at this point, import the whole thing. Maybe you want to import the whole thing. So from the top, the fourth along from the left is Finish Import. I'm going to click that and it's going to import the whole thing. It has a warning. The warning is a split net. That's not going to affect me, so I'm going to go OK. And it will import everything. It's going to take us a good sized board, so it will take a few seconds to import. Okay, here it is. It has everything included. It has all of the components, all of the nets. If I go to the navigation tree on the left here, you can see all of this under the components. Maybe I decide, well, actually, I just want to look at a specific set of nets. I don't need to simulate the whole thing. Perhaps I'm looking to add in a lot of ports, and it's going to take a lot of work to add those ports in. Or perhaps the meshing is strong on it and I want to relax it, but I realize that the meshing is using the import settings and it's very strong. So what I need to do is go back to the EDA import dialog, EDA import window, and from there change those settings. So I click on any of these structures, right click and go to EDA import settings. And it will take me back to this dialog. So I'm going to change all three of these things that I mentioned. The first thing I'm going to do is to change the mesh settings so that I can control them within the CST GUI and not have them take it from the import. So that's within the special settings, which is the second one along from the left. Let's go through specials. Now, depending on what type of board you're inputting, we'll change the titles of the tabs here. For example, this one has drills. But what I'm most interested in is the mesh settings here. And I'm going to change those to coarse, which usually means that I can control them. It takes the stronger setting. So this usually means that I can control them within the CST dialog. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select a section of nets and I'm going to crop around those nets. To do that, in this left-hand area, there's a components list here which you can change if you want to. Here we're interested in nets and cropping around nets. So I go to the nets and I filter for DDR3. There's a wildcard in there. Okay, so I'm going to select all of these nets. That's what I'm interested in simulating. And I click at the top, Enable Net Restriction. I also want to include the ground, so I'm going to look for ground nets. Okay. And then once I've selected what I'm interested in, I go to areas. Again, check Enable Area Restriction. And there are different settings here. I could manually do a rectangle or a polygon, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the nets that I've selected and create an area around them. So that's the right hand button. And this is going to select those DDR3 nets with an area. Let me change this to 60 mils. And I go OK and go to preview. So what I did here is that I deselected the ground nets. Okay, the last thing I'm going to do is to create ports. And that's on the lower left here. And that's much easier to do after you've restricted the area to a certain set of nets that you're interested in. And go to ports and look at the pins of the selected nets. So these are the pins that are on those DDR3 channels. I'm selecting all of those. This is a pin to reference rather than a pin to pin. Pin to pin would be more for differential ports. And I need a reference net to do a discrete port, and to do that I need a ground For this type of board, I need a reference, which is going to be the ground plane. And the ports are shown here. Okay, I've made those 3 changes, and now I go to Finish Import. It takes me through to back through to CST with the changes. Much smaller section now. You can see the ports here. And I can look at just these nets that I'm interested in. There are only a few things left to check now. Go to simulation. The background, there's quite a lot of space around the background, so I'm going to reduce that. And it's open boundaries, which is okay. Take a look at the mesh view. I have to put in frequency. I'm going to go to 40 gigahertz. And look at the Z mesh. It's okay. It could be maybe a little denser, but it's okay. So I'm going to go with that. It's around 333,000 mesh cells. I believe the whole board is about 30 million mesh cells. So 333,000 is a pretty small model, honestly. But you can see that most of the settings are done can be done through the import. And all that's left to do is to start the simulation.